Hey guys, I hope you're all doing fantastically. So today I'm going to be doing a book review on Hyperion by Dan Simmons. This is the first one in the Hyperion Cantos. This is an epic adult sci-fi, so it's definitely a harder and slower read, but it is really worth it if you enjoy that kind of thing. This follows the world after we have left Earth, and there is this alliance that's been called the hegemony of man created that basically has a peace between all these different planets and people who basically can travel between each other and have basically a peace. And Hyperion is one of those planets that is not included in the hegemony of man. There is this place called the Time Tops where the Shrike exists, and the Shrike is a creature that basically defies all time, and people take pilgrimages to there to see the Shrike and to the Time Tops, and they basically are this force that nobody has been able to explain, and the Shrike is killing people, or he does loads of things. He has like immortality, and there's suspicious things going on, and people are taking the pilgrimage there to see what happened and research it, and people have different experiences of going there. There's also a church that preaches the Shrike, and it's really interesting. The galaxy is about to go into war, and in the middle of this you follow these 6 people who are taking a pilgrimage to the Time Tops to see a Shrike, and these 6 people all have their own backstory, and throughout this book you basically get to follow the backstory of all these people. And there are 6 chapters, which I think is a little bit too long. I felt like it should have been divided into shorter chapters, but I do understand why the author chose to do 6 chapters, one for each person, and all these 6 people don't know each other, and they all have completely different backgrounds. There's a scholar, a consul, a father, and a poet, a warrior, and a detective, and it's really interesting to see what their involvement was with Hyperion in the past and what brought them to this point to take this pilgrimage. And they're completely different story. The one that touched me the most, or I enjoyed the most, was the one of the father, the scholar, who has his daughter with him who's just like an infant, and he's telling the story of his daughter Rachel, who was a grown woman, and why he's now going back to Hyperion, where Rachel, his daughter, was researching when she was an adult, and kind of what happened. And that was just so interesting. Like, the part definitely made me cry, which I did not expect, because I was about to DNF this book actually about halfway through, and then something changed. I don't know, I kind of saw the depth of the book, and the way that Dan Simmons writes, he just plunges you straight into the story. He's using a lot of abbreviations and vocabulary that is never really explained, and you just kind of have to grasp what he is saying by the context of it, and it takes quite a while to understand all the terms. And I really feel like I need to just read the next book really quickly so that I don't forget the terms that he's using and the abbreviations. But by the end, I felt like I had a good concept of the world. I think, if anything, that would be a critique, is that I think some things should have been explained earlier, and I don't think it's a bad thing that he didn't explain it, but I don't think it's a bad thing to be clear either, and this book is definitely not clear. You kind of just plunged into the story and you just have to deal with it. I felt like there's a lot of books out there, sci-fi books, who definitely touch on a few of the topics that are touched on in this book, but this one just has so many concepts and ideas for new mechanisms, for future jobs, for the way that the author views the world, or the different character views the world, of things that are going to happen, and different scientific breakthroughs that the world is going to have. I feel like this book really just plunged into all those ideas at once, which I thought was interesting, but it was also like this deep dark hole which you're like suppressed in, and you're like, oh my god, my brain can't take all these ideas at once. So it's definitely a lot, and it's a lot to handle, and I read this book really slowly, but I think it was worth it. Someone explained this book as pretentious, and I definitely see why people would think it's pretentious, because some of it is kind of like snobbily written in a way, and that part I definitely didn't enjoy that much. And something that really kind of I didn't understand is that some of the perspectives are written in third person and some of the perspectives are written in first person. So each person is telling their story. When one person was explaining their story, it was in italic. When it was first person, and the poet, when he was explaining in first person, it was also his story, it was also in first person, and that was never really explained, and the other stories are not, which I thought was really weird, but they all had different formats, which I thought was really cool. It was also really interesting how each background story kind of introduced new concepts and new ways of living in the world. I think there's one man who is a Templar, I think it's called, and he is the captain of this ship, which is a tree ship, and it's like a huge ship that is a huge tree, and I thought that was really cool. It kind of reminds me of Saga, actually, which they also are traveling in a huge tree, and I think this cover is really cool. Like, the illustration is really interesting. In Hyperion, this is a ship that is on a huge field of grass. Like, it's just huge grass, which I thought was really interesting, but definitely things aren't explained enough and you don't really get the meaning behind everything. The ending definitely cleared up some things and I got like a nice wrap up or conclusion on the whole story, and I thought that was really cool. But I thought I was prepared to read this and I was definitely not, but I will definitely continue, and as I'm talking about it, I'm just loving it more and more. Even though I just gave it 3 stars, I'll bump it up 1. Another critique for this book is that the relationship between the characters is kind of strange. Like, it feels very unnatural, and I understand that these 6 pilgrims are all kind of thrust together in the situation and they don't know each other or trust each other or anything like that, and I understand that maybe that's why it's a little bit strange, but even when they were telling their stories, it was kind of weird. Like I don't want to say it's like a little bit autistic, but the relationships definitely is a thing that was kind of lacking in this. It had great relationship potential, but I think it's especially the dialogue that was a little bit strange. Like, people don't really talk like that. I don't know. Maybe it's like a futuristic thing. I also thought it was strange how much this world clings on to human existence in the past and how much it's trying to copy civilization on old Earth, as they call it, and not moving forward in a way. But that was definitely kind of touched on in the end, why they cling so much to the past. And I like that they addressed that, because that was something I thought was kind of strange throughout the story. All in all, this is a 4-star book, and I would recommend it if you're used to epic books, like epic fantasy or epic sci-fi, or sci-fi concepts with like different mechanisms and outer world stuff. I enjoyed it, and that is it for this review. If you've read this book, please comment below about what you thought. I would definitely like to start a discussion, because there are so many concepts and things that could be discussed. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a brilliant day. I'll catch up with you guys soon. Bye!